kind of person calls a federal prosecutor a crackhead? Sounds like a president to you? Someone you trust with the nuke codes? Get real. Jack Smith is just doing his job, and Trump can't handle it because he's scared and only cares about himself. I don't have a medal to give Chris Christie. I simply read that because it was the only defense of the righteousness of these prosecutors that we could find.
He's created a command climate in this country over the last few years that weaponizes language, that directs his supporters to take violence in furtherance of their political objectives. I've called it an American insurgency. It is far-reaching. It is national. It is millions of people with guns who are being directed with language from people like Kari Lake, who's extremely effective and extremely persuasive and extremely dangerous. And those of us who work in and around politics, we all have friends who work in elected office. They've all increased their security. They all have threats on a regular basis. There are so many more direct threats than we ever know about in the public sphere. This is our new reality, but it can't be our new normal. It's a national security priority. It is the #1 national security priority. It's not just a political story. It has to be treated as something that's a direct threat to the national security and well-being of everyone across this country, not just people in the political sphere.
Going into this election, we can have community or we can have chaos. I'm team community.
Paul, what do you think the message is to, I think, really bluntly lay out what the congressman just articulated, that on one side, they're not all enthusiastic about political violence, but by refusing to condemn it, they put in place a permission structure where the few that are see a green light?
I think the message is this is a threat to all Americans. It's that simple. We've talked about it before. It's kind of a parallel after 9/11. Either you're with us or you're against us. Either you're with America or you're with the enemies of America. But I think not just the message, the messengers are also important. This modern political battlefield, just like the battlefield in Ukraine and other places, it's not just linear. It's not just blue versus gray. It's more like a shark tank. It's asymmetrical. So I'm not holding my breath for Lindsey Graham to step up and save us. I'm not holding my breath for Kevin McCarthy. I'm pinning my hopes on the FBI, the Justice Department, the Department of Defense, attorneys general, people who are supposed to be the Wyatt Earps, who are supposed to hold the line. But as an independent especially, I'm not waiting for the Republicans to have some kind of come-to-Jesus moment, and I'm not counting on the Democrats to defend us either.
Okay, wait, so you're waiting for Chris Wray? Let me read you this. Chris Wray is finally, quote, pissed, but he's pissed in private. This is from this Washington Post reporting, quote, Wray confided in a weekly video call with senior FBI officials that he was, quote, pissed about the attacks and threats of violence, according to one law enforcement official who spoke anonymously to share private discussions. That flash of anger was a rare hint at the private frustrations of a leader who has seemed determined to avoid the political scandals that dogged his far more publicity-friendly predecessor, James Comey. Do you think it would be helpful if Christopher Wray, Donald Trump's hand-picked director of the FBI, Chris Christie's former defense attorney, someone who has had any emotion that he's experienced play out very much behind the scenes, do that more publicly?
Absolutely. And he could also be dragged before Congress to testify to it. And we also have seen other people come off the sidelines. Former Secretary of Defense Esper came out recently and condemned Trump. Especially people from the national security, justice, law enforcement community resonate. And they can get through to not just people who are deep in the Republican Party, but the people who are persuadable, the moderates, the independents, the people who are going to decide elections, the people who can come off the sidelines and run for office despite the threats to themselves and their families. I think this is a gut check moment for America. And anybody in the public sphere has to stand up and be counted. History is watching, and our national security, again, is at stake. It's not just about an election. It's about our national security. Every day we walk out the streets and want to keep ourselves and our families safe.
You wanted to respond to the congressman's comment and framing about community versus chaos first.
I just think it's too complicated. I mean, when the Democrats try to explain this, it always sounds like word salad. Somebody said once about John Kerry, you could always count on him to say something in 7 words, which could be said in 3. Like, you got to simplify it. Trump had battle plans, and he's waving them around in the White House, okay? He's dumping documents on the ground. It's a national security threat to everyone. Democrats try to make the case, but they got to make it more ferociously. They got to explain that he's doing things that are terrorist-based. You got to frame it in terms of 9/11 and talk about bin Laden and talk about al-Qaeda and talk about ISIS. Stop being so nice. I think there's just too many people dancing around the edges here instead of going straight to the American people and saying, this could kill you and your family if you get caught in the crosshairs. I think that's what needs to be said in that way. I don't think they trust Biden to do it. Biden can try to make that case, but he has a hard time making it as well. There've got to be other people. Again, I'm going to go back to national security, law enforcement, Justice Department, people who can effectively make that case to the American people, to their gut, in a way that makes them scared for their kids like we all were after 9/11.
Congressman, you want to respond?
Yeah, look, point taken. I'm not afraid to ratchet it up a little bit.
The check writing from the Murdochs is not over yet.
Mm-hmm. You know, Paul, what's interesting is that Fox, other than the absence of Tucker Carlson in its lineup, has made no major changes. I mean, the Times did some great reporting, Jeremy and his colleagues, about Viet Binh being the executive in charge of the legal strategy. He's still the executive in charge of legal strategy.
Maybe 2023 is the year of accountability. I think it needs.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
It needs to be, right? For our national security, for our media, for our politics, for our culture. And maybe the Dominion case, is an example. If you do the crime, do the time. That should be the message. Lock them up should be the message. If you give away secrets, you should be locked up. If you storm the Capitol, you should be locked up. If you peddle propaganda, you should be shut down. The lesson needs to be about accountability. And Americans understand the rule of law. They respect the rule of law. And maybe this is the year, 2023, where accountability will start to finally happen. Accountability we all want. And it should go all the way up to Trump. Back to our earlier conversation, There are no political candidates from the left or the right saying lock him up. Right. Lock him up. You'd be hearing that, to the high horses from people about Hillary, but nobody says that about Trump. Why not? Who's going to be the person who says, lock him up, lock him up, lock him up? We won't be safe until he's in jail. That's the messaging that needs to come out if we're really serious about our national security and decoupling it from just the horse race of a presidential campaign.
Which we will not cover here, but just interestingly, Chris Christie's come the closest.
The closest. Yeah.
But he hasn't uttered.
Not really yet. Maybe he's listening and he'll start using that line.
We'll see.